Hello and welcome to the Siren Sports Show with myself, Ollie Collins, for the final time here in Lincoln. I am joined by Link Sport reporter and honorary Lincoln City cameraman, Kieran Walsh. Kieran, how are you?
Yes, I'm very good. I'm even better now Lincoln have had such a great end to the season, but I'm sure we'll get into that in the next half an hour.
Absolutely, and it has been a fantastic season for Lincoln City, finishing as champions of Sky Bet League 2 on 85 points with 23 wins, 16 draws and 7 defeats, scoring 73 goals and conceding 43. And of course, the League 2 title gives Danny and Nikki Cowley their third trophy in 3 seasons. The National League in 2016-17, the Checkatrade Trophy in 2017-18, and of course the League 2 title this year. Kieran, it's been a phenomenal 3 years since the Cowleys joined, hasn't it?
It's, hard to even put into words how amazing they've actually been and how successful it's been. I mean, Danny and Nikki say a lot that they like to keep the past trophies in the back of their mind and not try and compare and contrast them because obviously it diminishes their last achievements. But you've really got to say that as amazing as some of their achievements have been, now that they're into League One, that's definitely got to be the most successful they've been. They've done really well at other clubs and they've done really well at Lincoln, but this is definitely the highest they've been and as good as they've done, isn't it, really?
Because you've got to say, haven't you, that they are... I asked them the question in post-match interviews and after the game once they had won the league and said, look guys, is this the best achievement in football that you've had so far? But they are, as you say, very reluctant to sort of belittle the trophies that they won at Concord Rangers and at Braintree, aren't they? Yeah,
I think that's one of the great things about Nikki and Danny is they don't like to do that, but two, they just like to take everything on its merit. They're very pragmatic with their approach to football, and I think that's a big reason why they've been so successful. And it's also been a big reason to the belief around the city, I think, because everyone believes the fact that they are doing everything they can to get that next promotion, that next trophy. So I think overall, Nikki and Danny have shown themselves to be even better managers than anyone had thought, and I think they've said quite a few times that their goal is, championship football for Lincoln City at some point, and I would not put it past the club to get in that high at all.
Well, I remember speaking to Danny at the when Danny and Nikki first came in back in 2016, and sitting down with them and doing an interview in the Bridge McFarlane stand at the ground, and Danny going, yeah, this club can get to the championship, and almost thinking, hold on a minute, this bloke's crazy, like he can't possibly think that, and yet now here they are. We'll start August 2019 in League One. It's phenomenal, isn't it?
It is phenomenal. I mean, I agree with what they were saying because Lincoln, they've got a big stadium, they've got a big fan base that was lying dormant in many ways.
Absolutely.
Before they came in, but I think they saw the potential of Lincoln City as a place is big, but there's also the whole of Lincolnshire, and that's been a massive thing for them. They wanted to get the whole county involved, to get people from there's little villages and towns around Lincolnshire to come in and watch Lincoln play. And now that they sell out every week, it's obviously worked, hasn't it?
It was a big thing for Danny, wasn't it? When they first came in, he said he walked around the city and he'd see children wearing Manchester United shirts, Liverpool shirts, Chelsea shirts. And he really wanted to change that and to make sure that the people could be proud of their football team in Lincoln here again and actually wear the Lincoln City shirt and support their local team.
Yeah, I think there's been a really big movement by the Cowley brothers to make that happen, especially with the children. I know for next season that it works out about £1 per game for a child season ticket. If they get one with their mum or dad, which is just creating that community and creating that family club, which Lincoln City have needed for a long time. I mean, they've been you would say, underperforming team for a while now because of the size of the club they are. But they've also had a bit of a stagnant fan base, and you can't blame the fans because it's been a really rough time for the club the last couple of years. But since Danny and Nikki have come and they've wanted to get kids involved, they've been planning for the future because in years gone by, if you were living in Lincoln and you were a child, you would be Man United, Liverpool, and then when you grow up, you'd either not go and see Lincoln play or you'd move away from the city and not care. But now I think if you're a child growing up in Lincoln, you're going to know about Danny and Nicky, and you're going to care about Lincoln City. It's just the way it is.
As much as the promotions has helped that out, how much do you think the 2016-17 FA Cup run helped really elevate the position of Lincoln City and make them known on the map again?
I think that has completely revitalised the city and the club. And I think Danny and Nicky have mentioned that this season in their interviews and press conferences. I think not only did that create interest, as you say, but it also gave the club a good cash injection, which wouldn't have come. It wouldn't have come otherwise. It's as simple as that, and that's a big reason why. Danny has spoke a lot about how nice it's been to have top players at this level, which he's never really experienced before. But the reason that has happened in a lot of ways is because there's been some good players that have come up from then, and there's also been a good couple of players come in this season who have been really, really successful in the side. And you can't look past Danny and Nicky, but you've also got to look at how outstanding some of the players have been. I'd like to point out how amazing that back line's been. Especially, it's just been a really hard fought title win, and something that has you could never have imagined a few years ago. Absolutely.
We'll move on and talk about some of the important games, I think, that have really sort of got Lincoln City this title win. Going back to September, Lincoln City 2, MK Dons 1. You look at it now and you look at the positions of the teams in the table. How important was that win back in September?
I mean, it felt important then because MK Dons have always been, favourites to win this league. They've always, they've got the biggest budget. They've got some of the better players. They've got some ex-Premier League players in that side. I think, little old Lincoln coming and, turning up and being able to get a 2-1 result at home was just amazing. Obviously, it was a really late Shackle goal after they'd taken the lead. And it really, looking back on it now, it really does sum up the season for Lincoln because, the last gasp, type of things and, real fight and determination has really summed up the whole season. And, obviously we'll talk about it in a minute, but obviously both MK Dons results for a team that inevitably got promoted at the end of the season, it's really, really, strong results and showed what was to come, I think. That there's an extra result then as well and the Lincoln result. Both of them were really important, I think.
We'll look at Forest Green, Rovers away, 2-1, John Akinde double after, once again, Forest Green Rovers had taken the lead. Very similar to the MK Dons game in that the opposition took the lead and then Lincoln City went on to win 2-1 on both occasions. Forest Green obviously ending up finishing in 5th. Just how good an away win was that when they really needed one?
Again, another really good side, and there's that rivalry in there at the moment. With Lincoln City have played Forest Green a lot. There's been a lot of talk at the differences between the two clubs. Obviously, Forest Green have been backed heavily by their owner, not in a way that Lincoln City never have been, not in a bad way, but they just haven't had that cash injection. And John Akinde stepping up and getting 2 goals is really summed up his season, and that really sums up Lincoln's season to go away. And they've had such great away form all season. And Danny recently was speaking actually about how it would have been poetic justice for them to win away at Carlisle. Obviously, it didn't happen, but if they'd won the title then, it would have really summed up their season because they do so well away from home. And it's a lot of results like this by 1 goal where they've come back or they don't concede and they just really fight for that 3 points.
Moving on then, how good was that Mansfield away 1-1 result? Because that came at a time when Lincoln City really needed not to lose that game, and it was almost a draw, almost felt like a victory, didn't it?
Again, going behind early on in that game. Obviously we were both there, but it really did feel a really pressured game. That game, it felt like that game could really make or break this run-in, which is obviously ended up being really successful. In a lot of ways, obviously winning the title, and it felt like you lose against Mansfield, and you maybe lose by a couple of goals, then that really does take the stuffing out of this run-in. But I think again, Akinde stepping up with a really cool penalty, and yet another important goal, and it just felt like Mansfield had lost that game and Lincoln had won, even though it wasn't like that. And the fans there's lots of them, and they let the team know how proud they were of getting that result.
The fans were phenomenal, weren't they? In that Mansfield Town game, it was really fantastic to see that away end absolutely full to the brim with Lincoln City fans. Speaking of away fans, another important game that you mentioned earlier, MK Dons away, 2-0. I mean, I don't know about you, but I think this was my favourite game to be at. There was 5,500 Lincoln City fans behind that goal across 3 tiers of MK Dons Stadium. 2 goals, a 2-0 win, Andrade and Akindi. Just sum up that game for me, because it was absolutely fantastic, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's hard to sum up that game because it was mental. It wasn't only the result, which was obviously amazing. Like, that 2-0 result against MK Dons is so important, but it was the way that the fans just, really got behind the team, and to get that 5,500, we've spoke to managers and players and pundits about that day, and no one can believe that 5,500. Any league, it's amazing. Like, honestly, even the Premier League, 5,500 is a good attendance to take away. So it just proves the potential of the club going forward. Because one thing I did notice about that game was not only was it a great performance and fans were happy, but there was so many families and children and loads of people like that at that game, which is just such a good sign going forward. So I think it's a really good sign, not only for the football they played, but for the fan base as well. Absolutely,
for the fan base. I think the highest away league attendance in something like 80 years it was, the previous one being an unofficial figure from Grimsby back in the 40s or something like that, I think, wasn't it, of 7,000, but we still don't know there. And I think to take 5,500 away from home in League Two is just absolutely out of this world, isn't it? And I think that's something that Harry Toffolo and Lee Frecklington mentioned when we spoke to them, didn't they? That they just couldn't believe the sea of red and white behind that goal in a League Two game.
Yeah, I don't think anyone can believe it. Even us, we couldn't believe it.
We've seen
a lot
either.
of Lincoln City this season. Yeah. We've seen the highs and the lows, but I couldn't believe it when we got there and started flooding in, and we're in the concourse, and the fact that it was at MK Dons made it even greater in a way, because it was such an amazingly big stadium, and it just felt like Lincoln City were at Wembley, and it felt like when they won, they just won the title there and then. Obviously, it turned out that past that point, Lincoln City didn't really pick up the results, but that, I think,
they'd done enough, hadn't they, to get over the line by that point.
And it felt like they'd won the title that day, didn't it? Afterwards, so I think you can understand why the fans were happy, and you can understand why the players may have dropped off slightly after that.
Well, I think it's understandable for the amount of effort that they put in up to that point that they were allowed a few slip-ups, I guess, at the end, weren't they? We'll talk about the game, obviously, that got Lincoln City up into League One, that promotion against Cheltenham. Massive anticlimax, if I can say so.
Yeah.
Do you not think?
I think there was a lot of anticlimaxes, actually, when it came down to it. The MK Dons game was so amazing, I think, that it was kind of like you wish they'd won the title that day, because it was, actually quite a bad performance, I thought, against Cheltenham. Obviously, either side of that, they've had they didn't have the best performances. So it was one of those ones where, it wasn't the best performance, then they drew, and everyone, all the players were on the floor, heads in hands, very upset, and then you saw Danny running onto the pitch to all the players and saying, We're promoted. And then Alan Long obviously said it over the speaker, and fans were very happy, but the stadium was half empty at that point.
It was, wasn't
people
it?
would just thought, oh, we'll wait till next week. We'll wait till the next game. But it was still amazing. They still got promoted, and I think they had enough celebrations since then that it doesn't matter too much that was a bit of an anticlimax.
I think you're right. And then obviously they went to Carlisle after that Cheltenham game, lost 1-0. And I think Harry Toffolo joked in an interview that we did with him that they didn't actually want to win the league at Carlisle, because once they'd got the promotion and it was such an anticlimax at Sincil Bank, they wanted to actually win the league for the fans at Sincil Bank. And they didn't do that, obviously, by losing at Carlisle. And then obviously the league was won with that 0-0 draw against Tranmere, which, by the way, was a very good result as well, because at the time Tranmere was still sort of trying to push into the top 3. They ended up finishing 6th, obviously, so they're in the playoffs, but they were still trying to push there, and that needed a sensible head and a sensible performance, didn't it? That 0-0 against Tranmere.
Yeah, definitely. And it was one of those ones where you can forgive them for not getting that goal. They actually played really well. I think everyone would admit that they didn't play well against Cheltenham, but the Tranmere, it was a really good first half especially, and they had a good game. They could have scored a couple of goals, and they defended really well against a Tranmere side that, dropped off slightly come the end of the season, but at one point were the informed team for a very long time in the league. And, you've got to actually look at it, and a lot of the teams that Lincoln played in their run-in were playoff teams, were around that side.
They were, weren't they?
So it was impressive that they managed to get over that line. Obviously, the results weren't as amazing as they would have hoped, but yeah, I think no one's ever going to remember that they drew 0-0 against Tranmere, or even that they lost 3-0 against Colchester on the last game of the season. People are just going to remember that they won the league, so I think you can forgive them, can't you?
Absolutely. Well, after the game, we spoke to some of Lincoln City's players following that league win. First, we'll hear from Matt Reed, Harry Toffolo and Mark O'Hara.
Yeah, unbelievable. I was just saying, long journey in the last 2-3 years, but the hard work we've put in has finally paid off today. And two championships in 3 seasons has been a roller coaster, but one which we've enjoyed, and now share it with the people who come out and support us every day.
Yeah, it feels great. I remember speaking to you before the last game, thinking what's going to happen, but now it's done. We're buzzing and we can enjoy it. We've got another couple of games coming up to finish the season strong, which will give us a lot of momentum going into next year.
Oh, it's brilliant. It's a relief moment. I think it's been kind of not a long time coming. Obviously, it's not a lot of hard work, but once we're at top, it's just good to get it done. We've got a games like that we can enjoy.
Deserved it with the performance today as well.
I think so. We started very well. It felt as if it was a matter of time before the goal was coming, and it just didn't happen, which was unfortunate. But to say we played well, and it's good that it's sealed up now. So.
Now we'll hear the thoughts from Bruno Andrade, Shane McCartan and John Akindi.
It feels unbelievable. All the hard work has come out today, and when you put in the hours of the training session during the whole week, and it all pays off. How good does it feel to finally get it over the line? Yeah, it's been a long time coming. We could have over the line earlier, but like I said, we deserved it from the whole season, because we've been top the whole season, and we proved the why.
Yeah, it feels fantastic. Obviously, it pays off for all the hard work we put in, since the end of June. Really, it's a good feeling, and we'll remember this for a long time.
How good were the crowd today, getting you over the line as well?
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, the first whistle, before the game started, you get them roaring, and I think anytime we push the ball, we just got a few active rider as well. So they were brilliant.
It's a great achievement. That's what we set out to do at the start of the season. It's happened, so yeah, lovely.
How pleased were you personally for how you've done this season? A good turnout with the goals.
Yeah, definitely. I'm happy to just be a part of this group. We've done really well. And like I said, we were champions, and that was the aim. So I'm happy to be a part of that.
How nice was it to do it at Sincil Bank in front of the incredible fans again today?
Definitely deserved that. They've been supporting us all season. So, like I said, it's fitting that we did it at home.
Well, the Imps manager gave us his thoughts on winning the title.
It sounds good. It's kind of felt like a long period actually since we were promoted. I think that was our objective all season, to get promoted, and it's been tough for the boys because we didn't want to force another objective on them, because sometimes that doesn't work. So we spoke to them, but to a man they were all really determined to try to win the league, and I think their attitude, their application all season's been first class, and got no egos in the group. Everybody's really team orientated, and it's amazing when you've got a group of like-minded people what you can achieve.
I'm sure every other manager wants to know what's the key to 2 promotions in 3 years.
I think teamwork. I think surrounding yourself with really good people that are selfless and willing to work relentlessly hard. And like I said, if you can get like-minded people together in a building, then you can have great moments like today.
Well, obviously, after winning the league, Kieran, Lincoln City had a very poor end to the season that we have mentioned, of course, with the loss against Carlisle, a loss against Newport, a loss against Colchester, and from their last 6 games, actually, finished in the form table down in 19th.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the most surprising thing in the world, because, they are human beings. They would have gone out and celebrated after those big momentous occasions, especially when they won the league. Danny said admitted it was hard to refocus them after they got promoted to win the title, because all season they'd been, look, let's make sure we get third, let's make sure we get this certain amount of points, which was 2 a week a game. I mean, and it was really hard to refocus them. So I'm not surprised that they had some bad results, but also you can't be too hard on them. One, because obviously they won the league, amazing, and two, they were getting some really tough opposition away from, like, going all the way to Carlisle and going all the way to Newport. As we know, were very, very long journeys. And, hard on the players, hard on the fans. So you can forgive those results. Losing 3-0 at home to Colchester, when you're going to lift the title is bad. But again, Colchester only missed out from playoffs at one point. They're going to get in the playoffs for most of the game. So you can understand why they were much more up for it in Lincoln. And Lincoln, you can definitely imagine that Lincoln players have celebrated and lost a little bit of focus, which is all really what's the whole season has been about for them. It's been so focused, so driven. So when they lose that little bit of edge, you're not surprised really that they haven't got the results that they've been getting the rest of the season.
We can forgive them for the few poor performances, I think, then at the end of the season, can't we? We'll move on and talk about the awards, because obviously the awards night happened after the final game on the 5th of May, of course. Player's player voted for by obviously his peers was Neil Eardley. What did you think of his performances this year at right back? A player with Premier League experience from his time at Blackpool, and someone that has been a real key to that solid back four that Lincoln have had this year. Yeah,
I think the main reason probably he won Player's Player is because he's such a leader. He's captain a lot of the times when a couple of the first choices aren't playing. He has been captain quite a lot. I know when Matt Reed comes off, he usually gives his armband to Eardley, and it's not just that. It's every single time. Obviously, when I watch Lincoln, I'm at one end, so I see the back four quite a lot. And every time there's a goal conceded or there's a lapse in competition, he's the first one that will be shouting and screaming at. A lot of the time, to be fair, it's Harry Anderson not getting back and getting into position quick enough, or it's his other back line to get in position, and he's definitely a leader in that team, and he's also played really well. He's actually got a lot of ability going forward, which is something that Lincoln City you wouldn't say he had before, or really would probably wanted to get particularly. But both Toffolo and Eardley have both been really good going forward. And he's also, there's not been a winger this season that's, maybe Elias Chair is the only one that's made him look a bit silly. He's really shut all of those, there's some good wingers in the league, but he's managed to shut them down quite well, I've thought.
Absolutely. Goal of the season then was Shane McCartan's absolutely phenomenal volley away at Swindon. A serious goal that. Have you got a favourite goal from the season, Kieran?
I think that's probably the goal of the season.
It is pretty good, isn't it?
But I do like. Well, I'm sure we'll speak about in a future thing that award they won. But Andrade's goal against MK Dons was a beautiful goal.
I do love that goal.
I don't know if it was just because of the moment.
Just because of the moment, and I think probably because he came and celebrated right in front of me on my camera, and Danny and Nicky ran down the line celebrating. Terry the kit man did a knee slide in front of me. I think so. I think all of that added on to the Bruno Andrade goal probably was my favourite goal of the season. But skill wise, I think that volley from Shane McCartan was you got to go some way to beat that, haven't you?
He only scores good goals.
He does only score good goals.
He doesn't score many sitters, does Shane McCartan. But yeah, I think you can't really look past that. There's been a couple of Andrade goals this season that have been really good. There's he likes to come in and shoot on his right foot, and there've been some good goals from that. But Shane McCartan's just the skill it took. I wouldn't be surprised if it got goal of the season in the whole league. To be honest, so.
Yeah, it was a very good goal, wasn't it? Player of the season then, Michael Boswick also won Away Fans Player of the Season as well. He has been absolutely phenomenal, hasn't he? And I know he got into the Team of the Year as a midfielder somehow, even though we know he's been playing the whole season at centre-back and has been the absolute rock in that back four of Lincoln City. Just sum up his season for me.
I think it's been absolutely outstanding. I mean, he's not only been a rock, and I think it's actually a testament that he was considered a midfielder because he's so good on the ball, and when Bolger first came in, he was playing midfield for a couple of games. They wanted to fit all their best players inside. It didn't actually go very well, to be honest. He played well, but it wasn't quite the right mix of players, I don't think.
Yeah.
I think the main thing of that is he's such a good centre-back, and next to Shackle, both of them are experienced, they both played higher level, they've both been around as well, and they both have played so amazing this season. I mean, Bostwick has... I can't even put into words how many times he's put his body on the line and just got in front of the ball. It literally happens so often. So yeah, I think he's probably been my player this season. I think, I really like Toffolo as well. I think he's a really, really good season. Andrade's obviously had his moments. Akinde's scored a lot of goals. I think there's been a lot of players that have played well, but you can't really look past Bostwick. He's probably the reason that Lincoln have got promoted, because they've been so good at the back. He's played out from the back, and he's also, very, very dominant in the opposition box in the air as well. Absolutely.
Golden Boot then obviously goes to Big John, to John Akinde for his 15 goals. Obviously, a lot of those were penalties. Do you think that's a good enough return for your sort of Premier striker? 15 goals.
I think because goals came from other places, yes, I think so. But you do have to look at it next season, I think. And if you are going to play one up top, which I think they will, because it's the Cowley way, you do want him to be getting up to at least the 20 goals mark, because. Yep. He's probably had the chances to as well, but he's definitely not a natural born goal scorer, but he does so much else in the side that, especially when you have a likes of Shane McCartan or Danny Rowe behind him, who he can just, create things just by his sheer size and athletic ability. Yeah. He's so important for the side, but I do think going into League One, just to have Matt Reed and Akinde, neither have scored a load of goals in, this season. You might look to someone that's going to get you, 20, 25 goals in League One, because he's not the most proven goal scorer.
Absolutely. Well, summing up then, where do you think Lincoln City need to improve going into League One? Danny's obviously said that he has started the sort of process, as it were, looking to keep players at the club that he wants to keep, and then obviously bring in anywhere that he feels that the club need to improve on. Where do you think he might be looking?
So I think firstly is to look inward, and Gilks should definitely be getting a contract, in my opinion. Yep. He should be playing. Obviously, Vickers had a bit of a rough time on the week against Colchester, didn't have the best game, and Gilks has been, I think, signing the season since he's come in. Yeah. Honestly, he's been so amazing. And Mark O'Hara has been the best player in that side since he's come in my opinion. I think he's been absolutely outstanding. And I think if there's some way of getting him to sign, I think they should. And there's been a lot of interviews of him saying he'd love to stay and it'd be great for him to stay. So he'd be a good one to stay. Then, you've got to look up front, as I've spoken about. You could do with a different type of striker, a smaller striker. They've tried to bring a couple of people on, like Lee Angol and players like that, who haven't really done it. But you could do with a fast, maybe quite a bit of a smaller striker, which is a bit more of a goal scorer. I think Akinde is good, and Reed's obviously got a new contract, so he's obviously in the plans. Yeah. But you can't expect either of them to score a lot of goals.
No, I was going to say
League One, and you need that in League One. If you need that, but. I think the back line, all four of them, could start next season easily.
All good enough for
you. I think Bolger as well can play in League One. I think maybe another, a backup left back and right back wouldn't go amiss. As much as I like players like Tom Pett and O'Connor, I don't know if they're going to make it in League One. I think Tom Pett might get a bit exposed because he's playing centre mid a lot of the time, and he's a creative midfielder, but he doesn't seem to create too much for that side. So I think if Shane McCartan and Danny Rowe leave, and Mark O'Hara, there's going to have to be some investment in that middle of the park and the wings. Andrade, obviously amazing player, he'll play next season. I reckon he's going to definitely be in the squad, but they could definitely do with they brought some good backup in January, but a lot of that's been on loans. So if they leave, they're going to need at least 5 or 6 players, no matter who stays and who leaves, really.
Absolutely. Well, Kieran, thank you ever so much for sharing your knowledge with us over the past year. It's been a phenomenal 3 seasons at Lincoln City since the coming of Danny and Nikki Cowley. It's been a pleasure to bring the sports news to you in Lincoln for the last 3 years, and hopefully Danny and Nikki can continue to entertain the people of Lincoln for years to come. Thank you very much for joining us on the Siren Sports Show for the duration of this year. Lincoln City are on their way to League One.